Hey guys, on this episode of The Redeemed Marriage, I want to see if you've ever asked yourself this question. Did I ever really love my spouse? Or have you said, I don't think I love them anymore?
And so we're going to unpack that in this episode, and we're also going to tell you a step that you can take so that you can get back to the love that you had when you first got married. So stay tuned. This is going to be a lot of fun. Hey, I'm Rusty.
And I'm Heather.
We're the Bryants with Three Strands Marriage Ministry, and this is the Redeemed Marriage Video Podcast.
We are here to encourage healthy marriages, strengthen wounded marriages, and begin the process of restoration to broken marriages.
We're not licensed counselors. However, we are a redeemed couple that loves the Lord and wants to help you journey through this messy, challenging, and fun part of life called marriage.
Hey guys, I am so excited about this episode. It's been one that I've wanted to talk about now for a while. And I think the reason why I want to talk about it so much is because I get this question a lot, and I hear people ask me this question a lot. And to be honest, it was a question that I asked myself when we were going through our marriage crisis 9 years ago. And the question is, do I still love him? Or you may have heard, did I ever really love him? And that's just a question that I get a lot, and that kind of comes up a lot in conversations that I have with other ladies.
Well, since we're going to talk about that and just, if you ever loved your spouse, or do you still love your spouse? And just, I know that sometimes things happen in marriage and you start asking yourself those questions, you start doubting and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, just to start this off, maybe we revisit just kind of our relationship, dating and then marriage and honeymoon, first years, whatever, and just kind of give a little bit of a background where we came from. And maybe we can, as we're talking, sort of unpack how we fell in love. Did we fall in love? That kind of thing.
Okay.
So,
all right. Yeah, that's good. So we started dating when I was in 9th grade and he was in 10th, and we have a 9th grader, and that kind of blows my mind. Yeah. But
he doesn't need to be dating his future wife.
No, he
right
doesn't.
Now.
He doesn't. But I was in 9th grade, he was in 10th, and our families were good friends, and it was very natural, and we just started dating. And honestly, my dad, I don't think would have let me date that young, but it was just Rusty. So it was fine. So we did a lot of things with our families and things at first, but we dated all through high school. We both went to MC and continued dating there. He was a year older, so he went to college his freshman year, and I was still in high school, but we still dated. And then we broke up one time when we were in college for about a month. And it was just one of those things where we were like, we've never dated anybody else. Are we sure? And we were starting to talk about marriage, and we just wanted to be sure. And so we took about a month break, and that really just kind of affirmed to us that we were in a relationship that we wanted to be in forever.
And I remember us dating, obviously as young teenagers and just going through the whole dating process. I mean, there were lots of feelings and lots of emotions and hormones, Yeah. I mean, we were obviously attracted to each other physically, which, obviously not sure what she was thinking, but I've aged well, though.
You have.
Okay.
Aged well.
But, just thinking back on it was a lot of feelings. And I know that we probably even said to each other that we were falling in love. And, and so, and that's real. I mean, but some of those feelings we're probably not all love.
Sure, there's some lust in
absolutely,
there.
And just the attraction and the emotions that go along with that,
which is normal.
Absolutely,
because
you gotta be
attracted.
Yeah, there's gotta be the chemistry, and so and we obviously had that, and so right out of college, we got married, and that was, we kind of knew for a long time. And like you said, we had one little breakup just kind of to make sure. But, we were in love.
Yeah, Absolutely.
I mean, no doubt.
And wedding day, and we talk about that a lot. I talk about that with women a lot, to think back to their wedding day. You absolutely are in love head over heels with your spouse on your wedding day. We talked about that a couple of episodes ago, that fairy tale that you imagined. And for me, my marriage day, my wedding day, was that. It was perfect. It was everything that I hoped it would be and wanted it to be. And so absolutely, I was in love with you.
Yeah. And so, I mean, obviously I was too, and we got married, and I mean, even the honeymoon was great. I mean, and then even coming back, those first few years of just learning to do life together. I mean, we were genuinely in love. And although, just like we talked about before, fairy tale doesn't last forever, and we came home and found out really fast because there were conflict and all that kind of stuff, but we were still just very much in love. And so, as I think back on those stages, the dating and engagement and then marriage and honeymoon and even those first few years, you asked that question and you started asking the question of yourself. But I wonder if even through those early stages, do you think that love was a feeling or was it a choice?
Yeah, I think for sure it started off as a feeling, especially because we were so young. But even early in marriage, it was a feeling that, and a commitment. We'd walked down the aisle, and we were both raised in a home where divorce wasn't an option, and so it was a feeling and a commitment at the same time. But then, as things start getting harder, and there are conflicts and disagreements and maybe different views on things, then it moves into it being a choice. Like, I was choosing to love you and choosing to stay in a covenant relationship with you.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big point in all this, is that love it's both feelings and a choice.
Sure.
And, the feelings, honestly, they kind of come and go. And so, early on, the feelings are always there. You're falling in love, and everything is just, it's emotions and the feelings and all that. But as it is a choice, because you're choosing to say I do to your spouse.
Right.
And so as you're saying I do, you're saying I love you. And so that is a choice that you're making. And so, you kind of answered this a little bit, but as you get on into your marriage, do you think that it becomes more and more of a choice? And is that a bad thing?
Well, I do know that as the marriage goes on, a lot of times the feelings of the marriage are based on what the other person is doing for you. Like, I really feel like I love him because he helped clean the house today, or I feel like I love him because he's taken us on a trip. So the feelings, I think, come many times from what you do to make me happy.
Are you meeting
my need?
Yeah.
Are you making me feel loved and adored and those things?
And I think that's good that it does become, are you making me happy?
Sure.
And if you're making me happy, then you can almost hear yourself saying, oh man, I love her.
Right.
Yeah. And even in tough times of your marriage, like you could even be going through a stage where I think you may even be going, this just is not working. And then your spouse does something to make you happy, and those feelings kind of come back, and you're saying, oh man, I love her because they've done something to make you happy, to please you, to whatever it might be. And so those feelings, I think they do continue, but it genuinely becomes a daily decision and a choice.
That's right.
To love somebody. And
especially when things are hard. Like,
right.
I mean, I think about, of course, our marriage crisis, that you had to choose to love me through that.
Yeah.
But then I think, and that was big, and not everybody has big. Right. But even like when I went through cancer, there was nothing physically attractive about me in my mind. I mean, the surgery, the no hair.
You were bald.
Yeah, I was bald.
It was kind of cool.
It was not cool. It was not cool. And the surgery. Did I mention the surgery?
The surgery.
Yeah, the just scars and being bald. And I didn't feel attractive at all. And you chose to love me through that. I mean, if you had just been physically attracted to me, that wouldn't have lasted.
And it's kind of, I'm actually thinking about this a little bit while you're saying it, but, 9.5 years ago when, there was infidelity in our marriage, you committed adultery. And, at that point, I didn't have feelings of love for you. I mean, I had strong feelings of hatred. I really did. I was angry. And, I'm not sure that, at that point I was choosing, I immediately made a choice with it. I didn't love you anymore. Because of everything that had happened. And so I had to really work through all of that and make the choice of forgiveness. Sure. The choice of forgiveness was what led me to begin to make the choice that yes, I'm gonna love you, because we've said this before, but biblically, I had every right to divorce.
Sure.
But we knew from the very beginning that was not going to be our option, and so much of that you had a choice as well. But being the one that was the victim in the incident, I had that choice, and so. Making that choice, though, and the hard choice to say, I'm going to choose to love you no matter what you did to me, the betrayal, the hurt, and everything, I'm going to choose to continue loving you. And then when you had cancer, it was easy for me because I had already learned to make those choices during that hard time. And, I've said this before, but to me, when I really realized that I had forgiven you completely was when you got cancer, and I genuinely 100% said to God and said to myself and said to you that I would take the cancer for you. And years before that, when we were going through what we went through, I wouldn't have cared if you'd walked outside and got run over by a bus.
You probably would have driven the bus.
Yes, if I could have. If I'd had my bus license, I would have. But that's just real. I'm just talking real, Sure. And so, it really hit me when you were going through that, and I realized I would take this in a heartbeat for her. Yeah. And so I knew that I had truly 100% forgiven you. I had truly gotten to a place where I was choosing to love you every single day, no matter what had happened, no matter what you were going through. Now, are those days hard sometimes? Absolutely. Choosing to love somebody comes with hard things.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, it's feelings and it's a choice, and but I also, there's still feelings. We still have feelings. It's not like, oh my goodness, I have to choose to love her every day.
That's right.
Because what I think happens a lot of times, and I've heard you say this so many times with your mentor saying this, but you take steps of obedience.
That's right.
And for a marriage relationship, the step of obedience is choosing to love your spouse. It sounds tough, but it's simple too. It's like you're making a choice to follow your vows and to stay true to your vows. And so when you take those steps of obedience, the step of obedience to love your spouse, then feelings will come in time.
That's right.
They may not come immediately, but as you continue taking those steps of obedience, those feelings are going to come. And that's with everything in your life.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is the reason why I talk about that so much is because so many people, I've been there, I get there often, where you don't feel like spending time with the Lord, but you wake up and you do the things that you know to do out of obedience, and the things you know to do that will draw you closer to the Lord. It's the same thing with the marriage. You do the things that you know will draw you closer to them, and then you take those steps of obedience, and then your feelings, they line up. And the thought about, have I have I fallen out of love with my spouse? I want to revisit that because, you had a choice in our marriage crisis, in the affair. Am I going to choose to love her? And I remember the counselor asking us, do you love her? Like, are you going to fight for this marriage? But the other question for me, because obviously I had stepped out of choosing to love you when I decided to have an affair. And I genuinely thought that I loved and had feelings for this other man. And so how did I get back to, how did I get to where I thought that I didn't love you anymore? And then how did I get back to truth? And so for me, it was a hard battle, because I genuinely believed that this other path was going to make me happy. And for me to be able to look at that and see it as a lie from the enemy was a turning point for me, because I had to revisit how I felt on our wedding day. I had to revisit the love that I knew was there on our wedding day. And for so many people, that's a hard place to go back to. And so to go back to that place and say, absolutely, on July...
Oh my goodness.
It's because of Bacon's birthday. Sorry. July 27th.
Yeah.
I recovered. Bacon's birthday is the 17th, and I get confused. So how I felt on July 27th, 1996. I'm kind of sweaty, a little sweaty. How I felt on that day was I was absolutely in love with him. And you don't just fall out of love with somebody. You don't just fall out of love with somebody. It is you don't jump there. It is a moment by moment by moment by moment decision that over time gets to where you say, I don't even love him anymore. But it started with one little moment. And that's the part that I want, I just want to challenge you with. Go back to that moment. It's not just a feeling.
Right.
It's not just, let me get that feeling back. It's a choice. It is a choice of obedience and saying, I'm in a covenant relationship that I made a vow and a promise before my spouse and before God, and we're going to honor that. And so sometimes you may need help getting back there. Yeah. And so that's why I want to talk about this, because if you are in that place, which I know a lot of people are, they're like holding on for dear life, about to step right off that cliff and say, I'm done. And I just think we have some great tools.
Yeah, when you said earlier, you don't just wake up
That's
one
right.
day and go, roll over. I don't really, not feeling
Well, and
that,
you don't wake up and say, I think today I'll have an affair.
Right.
You don't wake up and say, today I'm going to be an alcoholic.
Right.
Those are big decisions that are moment by moment in getting there.
And those moment by moment little decisions are actually choices that you're making. You're making a choice to not love your spouse.
That's right.
And they may not seem like that when you're making those little choices and little decisions, but that's ultimately where you're headed.
That's right.
And so it's those daily choices. And so for one, you have to stop making those decisions that are leading you down that path. And you've got to start making choices every day that say, I'm going to choose to love my spouse. And so, like we talked about, we want to give some practical examples because everybody's in different situations. Sure. There's situations where, maybe both spouses are kind of just in the blah, neither one of us are really feeling it
just
right now.
Just trying to make it.
And you're just trying to make it, but both are sort of like, I wish we could get back there. And so, as one starts, the other one can start and it starts making a difference. But there's also instances where there's one that's just completely checked out.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, now I'm trying to do this on my own.
That's right.
But it's still, you're making a choice. It's a selfless sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that's what marriage really is.
Yeah. You remember that thing that we learned about marriage getting 50-50?
That's right.
Gosh, that was big for me.
Yep.
It's not 50-50 and you make 100. It's 100. And
Has
sometimes you're given 100% and your spouse has nothing to give.
Right.
And then sometimes you're given, 100% and your spouse is given 20. So it's a percent of responsibility. And
100.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, we started talking before, before we actually started this podcast, just of, what are those steps? So your marriage is kind of, maybe there's nothing massive that happened. Maybe there is something massive that happened. You could be anywhere in between, but everybody goes through those stages where you're just like, okay, how do we get back?
Yeah.
Because like what you said, take yourself back to that marriage day. Everybody would love to be there.
Absolutely.
Reality is, with all the life that goes on, you're not gonna be back to that day, but you could actually be in a place that's better, that's more mature, that's a deeper devotion, a deeper love. I mean, we're there because of everything that we've gone through.
That's right.
So, sure, it'd be fun to go back and relive those emotions and those feelings of the wedding day.
But I want to be where we are.
That's right. So how do you get there though? How do you get back to where you're choosing to love every single day? And I know what you said was you're taking steps to love your spouse the way that they want to be, or the way that they need to be loved.
Sure.
Why don't you share that from a woman's perspective and just what you mean by that?
Sure. So I know just from talking with Rusty and through some of our counseling that we went through, that for men, affirmation is a very big thing for men. That y'all need affirmation and affirming from your spouse. And I think about like these men that go to work all day. They go to work and they are working hard and they're trying to prove themselves at work, and they need that. And then when they come home, it's no different. They need that affirmation. And so that was a real eye-opener for me, to be able to
keep going.
Sorry.
No, I was gonna jump in before I forgot
go.
the key phrase. Like, a guy wants to know that we have what it takes. And we have what it takes, because you mentioned work. Yes, we want to know that we have what it takes when we're at work. We have kids. We want to know that we have what it takes to be the best dad. When it comes to, we're competitive people. When it comes to sports and athletics, we want to know that we may be older, but we want to know we have what it takes. And it's the same thing in our marriage. We want to know that we have what it takes. Right. So that's the key word. And by you saying, affirmation, every man fears failure. We don't want to fail at anything. We don't want to fail in our marriage. We don't want to fail. I don't want to fail you. I don't want to fail at my job. I don't want to fail my church. I don't, everything, my kids, all of that. So, so I want to feel like I have what it takes. And so,
affirmation feeds that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So for me, that was just weird. It wasn't weird that you needed that. It was just weird when I was told I really should speak into that more, because I don't expect you or really even care. And I don't think that that's weird if you say to me, thank you for unloading the dishwasher. Thank you for making up the bed. Thank you. Like, that just doesn't feed me. I do it because I love to, and that I feel like that's part of my role. But for you have told me that it's real important for me to notice those things and to show you that that you're enough in that way, that I appreciate the way that you take care of our family, that I appreciate the things you do to help around the house, that I just affirm you in that you are the best husband, the best dad, and notice when you do. Thank you for taking the time to do that with one of the boys. Just affirming that you do have what it takes.
Yeah.
You absolutely have what it takes.
And I think that since y'all like to be loved differently, which we'll talk about,
Sure.
it makes it harder for you to do that. And the other thing is, and I said this today, we were talking about this, but most women, they have this special gift of being able to point out all the things that you do wrong. And I mean, it's just true. I mean, that's just
Like,
kind of,
instead of saying thank you for loading the dishwasher, why did you put the bowls on the top?
yeah, I mean, it's just, so I do think it's even deeper than just affirmation. It's because, like I really do want to know that I have what it takes to make you happy. I have what it takes to please you. Like, just as a husband, as a father, as a lover, even physical, all of that. There's just this, like I don't want to fail, and I want to know that you believe in me.
Right.
That's the key. Like,
Right.
you believe in me. And if you're constantly nagging, and look, I know, that's just, ladies do that. And if you're just constantly nagging and nitpicking, and why do you spend so much time doing this, or why are you not doing this, or why can't you do this for me, or whatever, then it's just sinking further and further for us, going, I don't have what it takes. I cannot make her happy. Like, I can't. And that's when when the guy starts going, I don't know that I love her, because I cannot live up to her expectations. That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
And we want to live up to the expectations. We're not going to live up to the expectations, but by you saying, you got it. You.
So what does that mean for us? Like, for us ladies, what that means is we have to be their biggest fan. There should be no one at their job, in their life, in their what else, in their hunting camp, in their wherever, that is a bigger fan of your husband than you are. You have to take that role seriously, to be their cheerleader, to encourage, to just pour life into them, so that they then can love you better.
So here's something that just clicked with me too. There's one of the husband's role is to be the spiritual leader of the home.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are and how spiritual you are. Every man feels inadequate in that area.
Yeah, you said that.
And I do think that is one thing that we get chopped down probably more than anything, because we don't feel adequate to be able to lead in that way. And a lot of times it's the woman that has the desire for their husband to lead in that way. And there's a lot of nagging that comes along with that. Like, why don't you ever pray with me? Or why don't you ever lead us in about, whatever. And so even in that area, like, we need to know that even though we fail in that area and we are not adequate to handle that role, like, you believe in us.
That's right.
And like, you're going to do something that, instead of nagging and pushing us away, you're going to make it really easy on us. Almost make it to where it's our idea.
That's right.
But
that's right.
Because we want to do that, we just don't feel like that that we can.
And if your husband says, even if it's, let's say, the blessing before dinner, you make a big deal.
That's
and say, God, thank you for doing that. That meant a lot to me. Even, you don't round of applause, but you make it important to say, that was really important to me, and I loved it when you did that. I loved it when you did that. So
that's great. I think you nailed it. And being the biggest cheerleader is also because guys don't need to go look for somebody else to be that cheerleader.
That's right.
And I'm not even saying necessarily another woman, but that's certainly one of the things.
A friend, any of them.
Even guys that go to their hunting camps or go play sports or whatever. They got people there that are pumping them up and making them feel good. And because of that, they want to be there more than they want to be in your house.
That's right. And even if you don't like to watch football, I love to watch football. But even if you don't, sit down on the couch with them and watch football with them, and just cheer with them.
Trade out the Hallmark movie for the. I'll watch a Hallmark movie if you watch football.
Hallmark is gonna file against us. I don't think anybody at Hallmark Channel watches our podcast.
Maybe they would sponsor us. If you're with the Hallmark Channel, We'll talk good about you. if you
Okay,
sponsor
I
our
want to talk
Okay.
about how women like to feel loved.
Yes.
I hope I'm not hitting this microphone.
Oh, you might be, but it's okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So talk
Yeah.
about the
So
woman side.
for
of things.
us, I feel like sometimes we feel like we aren't enough, and that we need to feel loved and adored and cherished and protected. That protection, that's a big one. Like that nobody's gonna mess with us, that you're not, that type thing. And I feel like that's it. Like I don't need you every time I cook a meal to be like, oh my gosh, thank you for cooking. Thanks for dinner is fine. And I think that some women will hear, tell them thanks for unloading the dishwasher. When we unload it 50 times a week and we don't get thanked, but when you do something like that, to be sure and thank them. So for me, it's not that. And for a lot of women, I don't think it's that need for affirmation. It is making us feel like that we are enough for you guys, that we are, that you cherish us, that we are valued. We feel loved and just protected.
And what's so funny about that is I think John Eldridge writes a great book for men. It's called Wild at Heart. And one of the things that he says is that guys want and desire a beauty to rescue. So like we actually, that's in our DNA. What you're asking us to do is
Right.
that. The problem is we don't feel adequate. So it's,
Yeah.
and we could talk about this at some other point, but it's
Yeah.
that crazy cycle
Yes.
that we've talked about. It's like, okay, well, I want to do that, but I don't feel adequate enough.
That's right.
And because I don't feel adequate enough, you've got to affirm me
That's
and
right.
tell me.
And
that-
I'm not going to affirm you because I don't feel
yeah,
loved
so it's
and
just this-
cherished.
So it becomes truly a choice.
That's right.
And it becomes one of those, to put it very simply, I need to find exactly what it is that makes you feel loved, and then I make the choice to do it, whether I'm getting it back in return or not. You the same way, and as you do those things, the feelings, you're doing it out of obedience, and then the feelings will follow.
That's right.
And the hope and the prayer is that by doing those things, that your spouse's feelings will
right.
begin to follow
That's
as
right.
well.
That's right.
And your spouse may begin to do the things that you need in order to be loved. So,
I know a lot, I'm sure men watch this too, but probably more ladies. So can I challenge the ladies? Do you mind?
Yes.
Ladies, I challenge you without expecting or wanting anything in return. That's important. Because if you go into this saying, I'm going to do this and maybe he'll, I challenge you to say something encouraging to your spouse at least a few times a day over this next week. Just see how it goes. Thank him for doing something around the house. Okay, if he doesn't do anything around the house, then find something else that you can affirm him, encourage him. It can be talk about how good he is at his job, or that you're thankful for the way he chose to bathe the kids, or a lot of those are acts of service those are easy to say thank you for, but you might have to dig a little deeper and find something else if there's no acts of service around. But try to find something that you can encourage, say positive, make them feel loved, and to affirm who they are. Make them feel like they are that rescuer. Make them feel like be their biggest fan. I challenge you to do that this week without expecting anything in return.
And my challenge is kind of funny, because my challenge to the guy is, if you happen to be a guy that's watching this and your spouse, your wife may or may not watch it, my challenge is, don't go to your spouse and say, you need to watch this episode because you want them to hear what Heather just said.
That's right.
So
That's right.
in this, but in all seriousness, like take this seriously for yourself.
That's
Don't
right.
be the one that goes, are you listening? Are you listening to that preacher that's up there
Because you
preaching?
cannot fix your spouse.
That's right. And
Cannot.
so for guys, I would say that a lot of times we need things spelled out for us. So some of that may sound a little Greek to you, like, well, what does she mean by protected? What does she mean by feeling loved? ask your spouse, like,
Yep.
how great would it make them feel for you to just go, hey, can you just tell me what are the things that really make you feel loved? Like, what can I do to make you feel loved? Because a lot of it's different. Different girls feel different
That's
about
right.
different things. And so if you don't know, ask her. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be a
right.
private investigator and try to figure it out. Just go and ask them.
Yep.
And I just think that'll go so far. So,
Yep.
I think we've given some really good practical advice. And
I can't wait to hear from people because I'd love to hear how things go.
And look, you guys, I'm telling you, when you text us or when you leave comments on Facebook, I mean, it's such an encouragement to us. And we've had so many of those over the last few weeks. And, we feel like that we want to take the step of trying to encourage marriages, and it's a small step. And honestly, if it only helps one couple,
That's right.
then that's what we're here for.
That's right.
But if some of you are out there and you're enjoying this and you think, maybe somebody else needs to listen to it, share it. I mean, here's the thing. I know some of you are like, well, I don't want to share this because then people think I'm having trouble with my marriage, or I don't want to share this with my spouse. Look, you can even just share it and say, hey, some friends of mine that I know, or I've come across this and it's some really good stuff and you need to watch it. But that's how it helps to get more and more people. And that's, for us, we don't care the numbers and stuff, but there's somebody out there that needs to hear what we're saying. And so we want to be an encouragement to that couple. And you may be the way that couple gets to hear it. So don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid to share it. And you can just, hey, some of my high school friends that I went to school with are doing this. Y'all should check it out. That's awesome. So thanks for watching. And I hope you'll go to our Facebook page and like and share and all that kind of stuff. Go to our YouTube channel and make sure you subscribe to that. And we'll keep doing this because we're having a blast doing it. So
We'll see you next time.
we'll see you next time.